Confederation. Let's talk about Confederation in Canada, more commonly known as Maple Syrup Land. To start, what even is a confederation? Well, the Oxford Dictionary states an organization which consists of a number of parties or groups united under an alliance or a league. In Canada specifically, it was when the provinces in past British North America united under one government. But who came up with the idea of a confederation and why did they come up with it? None other than Sir John Alexander Macdonald, better known as John A. Macdonald, an Irish lawyer and Canadian politician born on January 11, 1815. MacDonald was the one who came up with the idea of a confederation, hence why he's one of the Confederation's founding fathers. MacDonald went from owning a law firm to working in the municipal government to becoming the Premier of Canada to becoming the Prime Minister of Canada. While working in the government, he saw the many issues British North America was facing, and his solution was the idea of a confederation. We will go through every issue all the provinces were facing and why the idea of a confederation will solve the problem, while also convincing the provinces to join. The first provinces or colonies to unite were Upper and Lower Canada. The two provinces were beefing with each other as the Upper Canada, the English people, hated Lower Canada, the French people, and vice versa. The hatred caused many riots to break loose. During 1838, politician John Gladstone, the first Earl of Durham, better known as Lord Durham, was sent to investigate the riots and come up with a solution. His report, the Durham Report, proposed a solution to all the riots was to unite Upper and Lower Canada into one province. This act of union was known as the Act of Union, which was implemented from July 1840 to February 10, 1841. This forced Upper and Lower Canada to unite. Even though they were quote unquote united, they still hated each other and divided themselves into East and West Canada. The only thing that really changed was the documents, and not a many riots. Uniting Upper and Lower Canada was just the first step of John A. Macdonald's plan to unite all the provinces. When proposing confederation with the other politicians in the new province of Canada, Macdonald thought that representation by population was the best idea for running the government. Rep by pop meant that for every group of people, there would be a representative for them in the parliament. Politician George Etienne Cartier thought the idea could lead to the people that he represented, East Canada, to have minimal say in political issues. This is because West Canada had a much higher population than East Canada, which meant that there would be more representation for the English people and their opinions. MacDonald convinced Cartier that this wasn't the case, but the rep by pop was still in discussion up till the creation of the Confederation when it was finally implemented. There were many other problems in the province of Canada left to co-premiers Macdonald and Cartier, but also in the image was George Brown. Brown was the leader of the Clear Grits, or known today as the Liberal Party. Macdonald and Brown were in disagreement about which city should be declared the capital of Canada. Macdonald fought for Ottawa, but Brown disagreed. Macdonald and Cartier were close allies, so they teamed up to get Brown out of the office. With the laws of legislation, Macdonald and Cartier came up with the best way to embarrass Brown. July 29, 1858, both Cartier and Macdonald resigned, forcing Brown to take charge of the government. Obviously, Brown was unprepared to take control of the government and led everything into a chaotic mess. Macdonald then called on a vote of non-confidence, which is when the people don't believe the current leader is fit to be leading. Everybody in the assembly agreed that Brown wasn't ready to lead, so Brown got voted out. Cartier and Macdonald went back to their jobs on July 7, 1858. This must have been so humiliating for Brown as he only spent 5 days in the government before getting voted out. Since there were two shuffles in the government in such a short amount of time, this event was deemed the double shuffle. The pettiness of Macdonald and Cartier ceases to amaze me. Surprisingly, Brown didn't quit politics after the humiliation, but continued to lead the Clear Grits. Even small problems every now and then were not easy to solve, as a rivalry between Macdonald and Brown affected the political choices. Around May 1864 to 1867, the Clear Grits and Conservative Party were constantly tied, which led to a political deadlock. To solve this deadlock, the idea of the Great Coalition came up. It was when both parties agreed to have a coalition and put aside their party's interests for the interests of the greater good. Now the government became bipartisan, as they now worked together for the colony. Now that the colony in Canada was at peace, John A. Macdonald wanted other provinces to join in. On September 1st to 9th, 1864, the Charlottetown Conference set the Confederation in motion. At the conference, delegates from Prince Edward Island, the province of Canada, also known today as Ontario and Quebec, Nova Scotia, and New Brunswick were there to talk about uniting all the colonies under one government. The second conference was the Quebec Conference from October 10 to 24, 1864. This conference discussed the issue of the aftermath of the War of 1812. After the many battles of 1812 and the American Revolution, many soldiers of the British military were injured and unable to fight. This allowed Fenians, who were Irish people that hated Britain for colonizing the country, to throw raids. The raids were their revenge on the British Empire. But rebelling in England was way too risky, so they raided Canada, seeing it as part of Britain. Teaming up with the Americans and the belief of manifest destiny helped them to raid Canada. Manifest Destiny was a dream that America would rule all of British North America. The raid spanned from 1866 to 1871. Since there weren't as many troops to fight off the Fenians, many untrained people joined together as a militia to protect the land. One of the most notable raids was the Battle of Ridgeway. In the early morning of June 2nd, 1866, around 850 Canadian soldiers clashed with around 800 Fenians. In the end, the Fenians won the battle, which means Canada needed a stronger army. The need for a stronger army was going all throughout British North America. This is why one of the promises John A. Macdonald gave to the other provinces was to give all of them a stronger military by uniting everyone in hopes that they would join the Confederation. The next conference all the province leaders had was the London Conference. Here, most of them agreed to join Confederation and were sorting out the rules they wanted implemented with the British government. 72 points had been agreed on and were set in motion with the British North American Act. Royal assent for this act came on the 29th of March 1867 and went in effect on the 1st of July 1867, known as Canada Day, or was once called Dominion of Canada Day. This act only united Ontario, Quebec, New Brunswick, and Nova Scotia, as the other colonies didn't trust the idea of Confederation yet. To stop the Fenian raids, Thomas D'Arcy McGee, who was once an Irish Canadian politician, tried to convince the other Irish people that the Confederation was a good idea. Many of the Fenians thought of this as McGee betraying Ireland to join Britain. This silent betrayal led to McGee getting assassinated with a shot in the head. James Patrice Whelan got arrested and hanged for the death of McGee. Though he was never really proven to be guilty or a Fenian, he had a revolver in his pocket which had recently been fired at the location and time of the event. John A. Macdonald wanted to expand Canada to the west, so with the help of the British government, the Hudson's Bay Company was forced to sell Rupert's Land to the Canadian government for $1.5 million, around $40 million in today's money. Louis Riel, who was a politician and leader to the Métis people in Manitoba, knew that since the Canadian government bought the land, it would be no sooner than later that Manitoba would have to join the Confederation. Riel uses information to his advantage. In 1869, he started the Red River Rebellions to give more rights to the Métis people and calm their fears that with more settlers moving into Manitoba, the Métis people would lose their culture. A while went by with Riel not backing down nor Macdonald backing down. Macdonald saw this wasn't going anywhere, so he started a negotiation. In turn, for Manitoba to join Canada, Macdonald promised Riel that Manitoba would be its own province, the lieutenant government of Manitoba would speak English and French, and the people involved in the Red River Rebellion would not get in legal trouble. Macdonald agreed to these conditions and also gave the Métis people 1.4 million acres of land, as well as 4 seats in the federal parliament. This was known as the Manitoba Act, in effect on May 12, 1870. When the land was given out to the Métis, the government needed proof that they actually got the land so settlers could move into the land. This is because the Dominion Land Act changed, making it acknowledged that Métis owned Manitoba, Northwest Territories, Saskatchewan, and Alberta on April 14, 1872 and 1879. The Métis script system was a way to prove that the government had been fulfilling the agreement. Starting in the 1870s, the system gave Métis people a script or certification that allowed them to claim their 160 acres of land or $160 to buy land. This system, however, was severely flawed. European speculators forged their names and claimed that they were Métis, allowing them to take the land. In the end, Métis people only got 1% of the land that they were supposed to get. On July 1st, 1897, Prince Edward Island finally agreed to join the Confederation after seeing the success it had in other provinces, but mainly joined to pay off their crippling debts. The year is now 1880, and back when John A. Macdonald promised to grow the economy, it's now time to make it happen. The plan was to make a railroad from West to East Canada, allowing all the provinces to trade with each other. The plan was solid, but John A. Macdonald was not. He horribly arranged the plan together. The first issue Macdonald didn't think of was that the railroad crossed Indigenous people's land. Treaty number 7 of the numbered treaties promised Indigenous people the land that he's just going to take away from them. John A. Macdonald's solution was to force indigenous people to live on reserves. These processes only set the railway project off track, and with all the rebellion in the Redwood Rebellions, it was hard to start the project. The project was predicted to cost around $100 million. By the time the tracks reached British Columbia, the most expensive part wasn't even built and the money ran out. Many of the people lost hope in this project and no one wanted to invest any farther. McDonald later convinced the government to invest in the railway project, reminding them of all the benefits of it. In reality, earlier on, McDonald got into a major controversy for accepting bribes from some businessmen, which made him leave office. Though he later got reelected in 1878, he still had to finish the railroad. His final solution for this was to use Chinese people. He made the Chinese head tax forcing Chinese people to spend a lot of money to enter Canada and take all their money away and use it on the railway. He took advantage of Chinese workers by making them build the railway in dangerous conditions with little to no pay. Almost everything about John A. Macdonald's plan to build the railroad was unethical and wrong. The last province to join the Confederation was Newfoundland on March 31st, 1949. They joined to give better living conditions to Newfoundlanders because Britain strongly encouraged them to. That is the history of the Canadian Confederation. Thanks for watching.